how to spot projects that might remain relevant for the long haul in the NFT space. Let's jump right in, guys. This is Block Gems. I'm Marco, and today I want to present you a dashboard that I have created specifically to discuss this topic. And by the way, this chart here will be linked down below in the description if you're interested, completely for free. Will update automatically week after week. So I wanted to prepare this to discuss one specific concept, which is somewhat similar to the Lindy effect, if you are familiar with this idea. So basically the idea that it's important to look at the projects that have remained relevant in the space for the past weeks, the past month. And this is because projects that have been particularly relevant, always on the top of the rankings for a very long time, are, in my opinion, the projects that might remain also relevant in the future. Maybe they will not keep exactly the same position. However, they still will have some sort of relevance, if not for any other reason, just for the fact of their historical relevance, their historical significance in the space. And we see this kind of intuition or this kind of desire to understand the relevance of projects throughout time everywhere in the NFT space, even in the in OpenSea itself. You look at this chart here or this ranking here called top NFTs, and you can segment for the last 7 days or all time or the last 30 days. However, this visualization here does not allow you to see which projects, how projects are ranking week after week after week, right? You don't have that visibility throughout time. And so you do not know, for instance, if the Bored Ape Yacht Club was top 1 maybe 3 weeks ago for that particular week. This is exactly what I wanted to create so that we can spot the projects that more consistently make it to the top 10, so that every week they would be ranked here. Okay, so with that being said, guys, let's jump right in and let's discuss this chart. So every colored block in this particular bar is a different project. And if we hover on the bar, we see which projects we're talking about and how much volume they have moved, basically how much money they're moving. So this chart is not about prices, this chart is about volume, because in this sense, in the meaning that I intend, we are concerned about volumes, not about prices. And this is because we want to see, we are considering relevance here as the amount of money that a project is able to move week after week after week. Okay, and so also this is something you can see here. The volume is the first metric that we see in terms of how much money indeed that particular project was able to move during a given week. And so we are repeating this analysis, but for every week of the past, say, 16 weeks, okay, the past 4 months. I can extend this to 20 weeks. I can move it around. So, and you can do it too, by the way. So what I wanted to understand is which projects keep this type of relevance. Now, art blocks is one, as you can see here. This blue block here is art block, and you can see that almost every single time we have it there. Now, there are some instances, for instance, this instance here, where we don't have art blocks making it to the top 10. Why we don't have it? Because maybe when we were here in the pit of desperation of the low volume market back in between October and November, this project was not particularly relevant. The issuance of new projects was not so appealing at the time. But later on, we keep on seeing this project re-emerging. Now, one thing must be said, that art blocks is not exactly one single project. Rather, it is a collection of projects, and there is always new issuance of projects. So it is relatively easy to always make it top 10 when you have such a big brand, when you issue constantly new projects, and when you keep on delivering in that particular sense and with new creative ideas in the artistic space, right? Just the only thing I want to say on this point is that art blocks is framed as one project just nominally, but in fact, in reality, is multiple projects, right? Art blocks contain multiple projects. However, in the same chart here, in the same bars here, we see that there are projects such as the Bored Ape that are just one single project. They're not like art blocks. They are sort of a collections of different projects that receive new and new issuances all the time. This is one single project, one single collection of tokens that consistently, week after week after week, is making it to the top 10. So this is not a surprising news, right? Because we know that the Bored Apes are probably the most seminal project in the space, with the exception of the CryptoPunks. And by the way, guys, I want to emphasize on one thing. This chart removes the CryptoPunks and removes the so-called OpenSea shared tokens. We can talk about that in another video, but just to make it more coherent, I removed these two particular tokens. And we see that the Bored Apes are always making it to this list, right? This gray block is the Bored Apes. Now, how do we look for projects that have at least a similar, a comparable kind of consistency? Because projects that have this kind of consistency are projects that ensure us a tremendous amount of liquidity, because it tells us that every single week there is a market for it big enough for us to find a seller. And this is something that I believe the market is still not pricing appropriately. You know, the aspect of volumes, the aspects of liquidity of the NFT tokens is still massively underpriced, massively underconsidered, underevaluated in the space in general. People are so focused on price. So when we look at this chart, we see there is another project that is particularly relevant because it makes it to the top 10 very, very often. And one is the Mutant Apes. If you look at the Mutant Ape Yacht Club, you see here, you don't see here, comes back here. But overall, especially in the past few weeks, you can see how it was always starring amongst the best, the most traded projects. And this tells us that this project has huge liquidity. So basically, you always find buyers for this type of project. And so if you're looking for a project that will stay and that might have a price point that is approachable, that is not as expensive as Bored Apes, is not as expensive as the CryptoPunks, the Mutant could be the next best alternative. If what interests you is a project that you always can sell, that is also a seminal project for the space, and it has been starring in the top 10 projects in terms of volume, in terms of most traded projects, very, very consistently throughout time, okay? And I want to come back on this chart again, maybe next week, because I think that this is super important as a chart to examine, because it allows us to see also how many tokens go through this boom and bust cycle that lasts a couple of weeks. The hype lasts for a couple of weeks just after release, and then people move on to something else. And this market, the NFT market, is really notorious for falling in love immediately for something that seems to be every single time like the next best thing, next best big thing. And then it turns out not to be the case. One example is the Metaverse, making it to the top 10 with the biggest share, same thing next week, and then boom, you're out of the top 10 and you're never coming in the top 10 again. And this has happened so consistently, so many times. And we could trace patterns, we could look at phenomena that are occurring. So if you guys like this kind of videos where we look at the data, please let me know in the comment section below. Now, before we close the video, I want to move on to another topic that we have discussed recently, and is around the drop of the Mirandus Vox box. Please go and look at this video. I recorded it yesterday, and in this video, we talked about the fact that entering the Mirandus Vox drop from the primary market, in my opinion, was a very good idea. And I explained how and why extensively. I talked about price spreads. I talked about the difference between the primary market and the secondary market. And I said over and over again that if I was holding on to one of these boxes yesterday morning, I would have sold it because the price point, in my opinion, was very, very high compared to what we could have seen just a day after. And guess what? It is exactly what we are looking at today, a price drop. And in my opinion, this drop is not over yet. We might see a further drop in the upcoming hours, in the upcoming days. Personally, I made it to the primary sale and I flipped immediately. So I really put my money where my mouth was, and I flipped for nearly 3 ether, and I don't plan on entering back this particular trade. I'm buying back lower at these price points, not because I don't believe in the project. I really like Mirandus long term, but because I believe that there are a number of indicators right now that are pointing toward the fact that this box is overvalued. And as I'll state here again, I think that once we will have the reveal, the price will further drop and it will go lower than the first edition of the Townstar avatars. Okay, I will state this very clearly. Townstar avatars first edition will remain in the long run, on average, more expensive than the Mirandus ones. Maybe we might have a sugar rush in the very first days after reveal. Anything can happen, but my stance is that as these Vox collectibles that will come out of this box will be playable characters in Townstar, the first edition will remain the one with the higher price, okay, in the long run. Now, I hope that this video was useful for you. If you want to learn more about strategies for this particular token, you can watch this video here. And you can fact check me on my trading strategies if that's your thing. And guys, please remember to subscribe to the channel and to actually join the Discord below in the link that I will put in the description, because it's there that we discuss strategies all the time. We talk about which trades could be very sexy to enter right now, price spreads, minting from the primary market to resell on the secondary market if you're a flipper, if that's your thing. But also we discuss long-term holdings and plays that are more for the long run. So guys, I hope that you enjoyed the content. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.